Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of people with disabilities. And that means we're going to be talking to a variety of people. Sometimes it's that adult who grew up as the kid with a difference. Sometimes it's parents who have or are raising children in their family with some sort of disability. And sometimes it's people that support this community, folks in healthcare, nonprofits, education, a variety of different ways to support. And first of all, I know you're really busy and you've got a lot of choices when it comes to your time. So thanks for listening in to this podcast. I think you're going to enjoy our guest today. Kristen is here. She's a mom, and I'll let her tell you about her entry into this world in a minute. But we like to start off the podcast with our fast four and get to know her just as a person with disability by our friends at Reliable Tech Help. So for your tech needs, you can reach out to them at 502 797 7399. Kristen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, we'll start out with an easy one. What's your favorite food?
So it's not really a food, but if I had to think of the my favorite thing, I would say a McAllister sweet tea.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I
Yeah.
love it. All right, if we got into your listening devices, what would be on your playlist?
90s country all the way.
Okay, that was easy. You didn't even hesitate.
Oh yeah.
What about something you're enjoying right now? Could be a book, could be a guilty pleasure streaming show, a movie.
I would say right now my husband and I are really enjoying Landman and Mayor of Kingstown.
Okay, very good. And
Yeah.
then last but not least, destination that you either love going to or you always wanted to go to but haven't yet.
I would say Bora Bora. There's just something about those little huts in the middle of the ocean. I don't know.
I love that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about being a mom, your entry into this world of sort of special needs parenting.
Yeah. So I have two kids. My first is typical. Her name's Maddie. She's 14. And then we have Zane. He is 6. So when we had Zane, everything was completely normal, normal pregnancy, all that fun stuff. Went to have Zane. Took me 3 days to have him. And um, we had him, and immediately he was having breathing trouble. So we just thought, oh, he had fluid on his lungs from, labor and delivery and all that. So we were at our hospital for 12 days. Couldn't figure out why he had fluid on his lungs still. So at 12 days old, he got to have his first ambulance ride to Norton Children's downtown. And I would say within 8 hours of being there, they immediately were like, please stop feeding him by mouth. He is a silent aspirator. Everything you were feeding him is going straight to his lungs. So, of course, I was devastated because I felt like I had been drowning my son for 12
Mm,
days.
wow.
And so then that kind of started the journey of the NICU. We were in there for 52 days. And I actually recently told my husband, I said, when I think back about that time, the 52 days felt like a lifetime. And it was just kind of like a whole blur. I don't know how I survived it, but we did. We figured it out. But he was in there, he ended up having to, we had a genetics test done to figure out why he was not able to get off the oxygen. Come to find out that he had a chromosome deletion, which basically pointed to developmental delay and hypotonia, which is just basically low muscle tone. Everything was developed. He just was unable to get the food to his stomach. So he, of
Mm,
course, had a G tube put in. He was on a G tube strictly nothing by mouth until he was about 9 months old. And then so at about a year, he was able to get that out and thankfully didn't have any oral aversion, which I know a lot of kids struggle with. So thankfully he did go ahead and take to a bottle and normal eating. And then we just it's been a whirlwind since. So he's met all of his milestones on his time. He didn't walk until he was 3. I would always tell him before that, son, I can't carry you to college. You're getting heavier. You're going to need to learn to walk. Never thought the day would come, but then it finally did. And so, yeah, so it's been a fun journey. He's also autistic. Kind of saw the signs of that closer to probably 3. I'm 3 years old. But yeah, so going from having a typical child who is an only child, an only grandchild for 8 years, and then Zane comes along and he is everything that we never knew we needed, and he's just made all of our lives just that much more, better. And yeah, so it's just a constant journey of figuring it all out.
Well, thank you so much for that quick overview of a very complicated journey to get here. You mentioned the NICU in 52 days, and it's such a different experience. I don't think there's a chapter on it and what to expect.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts about that NICU experience when it started, but also just kind of the long-term impact as a mom, as a parent on having a kid in the NICU.
Right. So, your kid goes to the NICU. And so, if you've ever known anybody that's had a kid in the NICU, sometimes they're in there for a week. Sometimes you hear the horror stories of being in there for months. And so, you never really know because it's day to day. And you're really just trying to figure out, how are we going to get out of here? It's kind of like breaking out of jail at some point. But it just all kind of becomes numb, I guess. You wake up and I would tell my husband I'd wake up, I'd go to the NICU, I'd spend time with Zane, I would feed him, I'd, spend the whole day there until it started to get dark. I would go home, I would go to bed, and I'd wake up and repeat the same thing. And you have the machines going and the beeping, and you have, this kid over here stops breathing, and this kid over here gets to go home, and this kid's the new kid, and it's just a constant wave. And I guess I didn't really realize the impact it had on me, like emotionally, until it was actually 6 years later, and my niece was in the NICU. And I
Mm,
remember going to the hospital to see her, and I was so excited to go in and visit her and, hold her for the first time. And as soon as I walked into the room to sign in, I heard the beeping. And it's like the
mm.
emotion just took over me, and I just immediately just broke down. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that just the little things like that, that you don't realize 6 years later just have such an impact on your emotional state. So yeah, thankfully she was only in there for I believe about 12 days. So yeah, it's crazy though how just little things in your life, little like even the sound of a machine can just bring back all the wave of emotion of like a
Yeah,
season of life that you went through.
almost a little PTSD sort of
A
from that.
little bit, yeah.
What would you recommend for people who have people in their family who have somebody in the NICU, or for that new parent who's been thrust into this world? What are some of your takeaways or advice, being able to have the hindsight looking back?
I would just, if you're someone that knows someone that's in the NICU, I would just let them know that you are there for them. If they need anything, you're just a phone call away. I wouldn't necessarily bug them every day, what's the update? How are things going? Because as you
Mhm.
know, it's usually you don't know the update, and usually you're just wanting to get out of there too. And so just let them know that you're there for them. And if they need anything, if they need help with other kids at home, just let them know that you're there. And if you're a parent, I would definitely say there's no right or wrong way to do it. I remember the hospital gave me the option. They said, we'll hold a room for you and you can stay here, while your kid's here. And then once he was transferred, I had to, unfortunately, I didn't have that room anymore, and I had to go home and go to sleep. And it's okay. It's okay to go home and be with your family and see your other kids. You're not taking away from the time with your kid that's in the NICU. You have to make sure that you're there for everybody else as well. And just know your baby's being taken care of.
Yeah, really good advice. I want to talk a little bit about accessing once you make the jailbreak, as you said, you get in this journey of figuring out what's next, and I want to talk about that. But first, we'll take a real short break. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and challenges that he and his wife raised their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 14 years of experience to help his clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 502 803 5075. So, Kristen, we talked about that jailbreak, and then you're kind of like, what's next? And a lot of
Mm.
parents go through this journey of like figuring out resources that they probably didn't have to come to bear for raising a quote typically abled child. What was that part of the journey like for you?
Very interesting. I didn't even think about the, looking out for other resources at the time. When he came home, I thought, okay, we're going to start first steps. We're going to do all of our normal doctor's appointments like we normally do. It didn't really hit me until he turned 3 years old. And when he turned 3 years old, what I found out is, of course, I knew first steps was going to be going away. But then I thought, oh, I'm just going to go to the pediatrician. I'm going to get a referral to go see a therapist. And he's just going to get, his occupational therapy, his physical therapy, his speech therapy. We'll just find all new therapists for that. And what I didn't realize is that even just having private insurance, it's not that easy.
Mm,
So I really didn't find out about different resources until I started talking to some other moms that I had met that were in the similar situation. And they started asking me questions. They said, have you looked into the home community based waiver, which is a waiver program in the state of Kentucky? I said, no, what is that? And they said, well, you need to get on the waiver because then your son will be able to get Kentucky traditional Medicaid. And with that, he'll be able to have all of his services taken care of. Because if you're trying to do private insurance, a lot of places don't take private insurance. They will give you a cash option, but then you have to be willing to pay about $500 a week for your
mm,
for your child's therapy, and that's just not sustainable for most people. So it did take me about a year to get on the home community based waiver program, but after we got on that, thankfully, he was able to get all of his services that he needed. But my recommendation would be don't wait until your child turns 3. Go ahead. I mean, when your child's 1, go ahead and get it started because you just never know what
mm.
services they're going to need. If they're going to need any, ankle braces, anything like that, any walkers, you definitely want to go ahead and get on that. And then the other recommendation would be the Michelle P waiver, which most people have heard of. That is about an 8-year wait list, but it is good to go ahead and get on that wait list because especially if you feel like your child will need services as an adult,
Mm.
you definitely want to get on that wait list for that as well.
So really other people that have been walking this path were your best resource to find out about these sort of
For
things.
sure. It was one of my customers. I went over to give her a quote and I seen she had a son that was special needs. And I was like, oh, I always, anytime I see another parent with special needs child, I always try to let them know, like, I can relate. I see you. It's like, oh, I have a son at home that's special needs. And she was kind of caught off guard because I guess nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
She's like, okay, she noticed. And I was like, oh, she's like, oh, you do? And she told her husband, she's like, oh, well, how old is he? And we got to talking. And then it was like she felt like excited, like let's talk about this. And so then we
yeah.
just started talking about the different things. And I told her, I was at that time going through trying to find therapy for my son, and that's when she actually introduced the home community based waiver. And that's not anything I was able to find on Google. So
Right.
I'll be forever thankful that she told me about that. So yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned having Zane being your second, but obviously having another child, and that's always a question people have is what part of the journey was it like for you as a parent with the impact on the whole family, especially on his sister?
So I think it's a huge impact. And I think it's one that we don't realize. I think when you have a child with special needs, you naturally are putting more energy and effort into that child, not because you are, trying to or you're trying to avoid the other child, but if the other child is typical and they're independent and they can take care of themselves, you just kind of assume that, they got it, they're okay. But what I come to realize is that I feel like you still need to take the time to talk to your other kids, see how they're doing emotionally. My daughter has told me before, well, she'll say, well, Mama, I didn't want to say anything, or, maybe I was having a bad day, but you have a lot on your plate. And, that's
Mm,
no excuse. So it's just making sure that you take the time to let the other kids know that they're seen and they're heard. And even if you can, I'll keep Zane at home with my husband, and me and Maddie will go out and get our nails done. Just having that one-on-one time to know that, she's important too, and it's good to make sure that we still keep that connection.
Yeah, I
But I
love
will
that.
say it, I mean, it has shaped her as a human. I mean, she is a great child, and I will tell you, out of any other 14-year-old girl that I have ever met in my life, she has more empathy for people. She sees people as humans. She
Mm.
loves going to the special education classrooms at school to help out. She wants everybody to feel important, and she does not see people for their disability. I mean, she really just makes everybody feel like they're normal.
Yeah, it's amazing because obviously there's some extra challenges, like you said, attention, focus, some needs that run the risk of being neglected. But there's
Mhm.
also all these benefits that you get. The
Mhm.
idea that she's more empathetic, that she sees the world through a different lens is universal. I've heard that from so many parents I've talked to on this podcast or when I was researching my book. And it's actually surprising the number of people I ran into where the sibling ended up going into a field, whether it's special education or therapy or something, as a career because of having a sibling who had those extra needs. So it's a pretty profound impact. So I guess the biggest advice I took away from what you said was acknowledging that it's a thing and talking to them and letting them know that you see them and that you recognize that, yeah, we do spend more time just out of necessity and energy on your sibling, but that doesn't mean we don't know what you're going through.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting. I love that. Let's talk about when your child gets to out of those first steps and those early years. There's all these transitions as you move along this journey, and one of the big ones is getting ready for school and trying to navigate how that's going to work. So, what was that like for you guys? What did you learn through the school of hard knocks along the way? And again,
Mhm.
later, maybe what advice would you give young parents?
Mm. Oh, it's terrifying. It is terrifying. So when you think of, and every parent is nervous about their kids starting school. But the
Mhm.
difference is, with Zane, I felt like I was going to send him to school, and he was obviously going to be upset because he was going to be going to a place he didn't know anybody. And, it's trying to make him feel comfortable. But then when he comes home, it's asking him, how was your day? And he can't necessarily communicate to me, how
Mhm.
he's feeling. You just kind of have to, you know, really navigate all that. And what's great is we have found a great school and close to us. And what we come to realize, yes, it was uncomfortable in the beginning, but that is where I feel like we saw the most growth in Zane as a person is starting school. He is a huge
Mhm.
people person. He loves people. He loves people watching. He loves to make people laugh and make people smile. And so when he's around other kids, typical and non-typical, he just thrives. And so all of his teachers love him. I mean, you would think he's the president at the school. I mean, he walks the halls. Everybody knows who he is, even though he's in first grade. And so it is uncomfortable, but I think just making sure you have those open conversations with the teachers, see, just see how you can help them, how they can help you, and just having that open conversation. How was his day? What can we do at home to make things better? But yeah, I mean, just know that I think for their development, I think that's where you're really going to see them grow the most, is when they start school.
I love that. Yeah, well, which brings me to another topic I talk with a lot of parents about is you've got that helicopter parent that like, kind of never wants their kid to fall down and have any trouble. And then you've got the parent on the other extreme that kind of throws them in the deep end. You'll figure it out, literally, figuratively, whatever. Where did you find yourself and what has been your evolution on, letting him have that growth, but also that's risky and that's scary as a parent to let him do things. Has he surprised you in terms of what he was able to do when you stepped back? What's that journey been like for you?
I would say my husband and I are the complete opposite on that. I'm closer to being the helicopter parent. My husband is like, Kristen, he is fine. He is a boy. He is going to fall. He's going to get dirty. It is okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's good to have a little bit of both. I think
Mhm.
that I'm still making them aware of the dangers of certain things and letting them figure some things out. But I think ultimately you do have to let the reins go a little bit because I don't think they're going to push themselves if you don't let them figure it out sometimes. So you just got to let them, yeah, you just got to be a little bit of both, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and if you don't let those reins go, you run the risk of kind of like narrowly defining what's possible for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Oh,
and
yeah.
and and inadvertently putting limits on what they're capable of.
Oh, yeah. So Zane started, like I said, he didn't start walking until he was 3, but at, I would say 5, maybe even 4.5, he was playing t-ball at a church league with typical kids. He was the only non-typical kid on his t-ball team. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this and it's going to be okay. And he loves it. He absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Was there a time where earlier the fact that he one day would play t-ball in a typical environment that probably would have surprised you, or did you see that coming?
Oh, I did not see that coming. No, because at 2.5, he was scooting on his butt down my hallway.
Right.
And I thought he's getting heavier. Am I going to be able to keep putting him in and out of the car? You know, when's he going to walk? So, I mean, the fact that he did play t-ball and just was out there by himself. So when he first started the first year, I would go out there with them and help him hit.
Hmm.
And then he would run to the bases. And we were kind of always kind of there if he needed us. And then that second year, he was just kind of like, I got this. I don't need you out here anymore. You can sit in the stands like all the other parents. So no, I would have never, never. And I send pictures to his therapist when he was 3, and I'm like, look at Zane playing t-ball. But they
Right.
know he's hard headed, he's stubborn, and he's got it.
Are
So
we gonna are we gonna say he gets that hard headedness from your husband? Is that what we're gonna say?
both,
Both.
both, yeah.
So I think that's really important because if you had been listening to this podcast when he was 1.5 or 2.5, hearing a mom say, I'd never thought this was possible, but here he is, and he's like, I got this.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
It's crazy. That's why I know. They say the different milestones. You just never know. You don't know. You never know. I
Right.
mean, this time next year, who knows what he'll be doing, you know? Just each little step at a time.
I love that. For every parent, getting that support system around you in that village is big. I want to talk about that. But first, we're going to take one more quick break. I'll never forget the day the doctor said, I don't think we'll have to take the baby today. This was March, but Sophia wasn't due until June. Hey, everybody, this is Jim Littlefield Dalmaris, host of the Seeing Ability podcast and author of the book, Seeing Ability. Our experience having a daughter with CP and other challenges led me to write the book I wish my wife and I had when Sophia was young. Doing the research for the book gave birth to this podcast, but I can use your help. If you're enjoying today's episode, rate and review the podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and go to our Facebook page and follow the podcast, like and share today's episode. I want this podcast to become part of the village for families on this path. And now back to the show. So again, we talked about getting that village and building that. Talk to us a little bit about the steps in that. How did that evolve for you? And then what advice would you give to parents who are just figuring this all out?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's huge to have a village. I mean, without our family, I honestly don't think we could do it. I mean, between our parents, aunts, uncles, and even other moms that we've met. And so you have to have a village to keep it going. I mean, there is one mom in particular that I talked to when I picked my son up from school. And I know she has her village too, you know. But even just you can just tell when you talk to other people and I'll talk to her and I'll say, "Oh, the teacher said that the boys played today, they played ball." And just hearing that from another mom that your child is connecting with another special needs child, it's like it just brings I feel like it brought tears to her eyes because you don't really hear that when you have special needs kids, you know. You just want them to feel included and you want them to feel loved and you want them to feel typical. So just I think that the yeah, it's huge. I don't know. Yeah, I just kind of want to tell that little story about that other mom just because it kind of broke my heart because it's hard. It is
Yeah.
hard, and you never know what everyone is going through. Um, but definitely get involved with Facebook groups of other moms. Um, talk to your parents, just go on those date nights. You have to have the help. I mean, there's just no way mentally to do it, I don't think, without it.
So date nights are a real good segue to a topic that it's kind of funny when I talk to people about this topic because a lot of them will be like, self care. Can you tell me what that is? I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure how that works. And other people are pretty intentional about it and have set up some things to, it is so natural for us in general, especially for moms and for parents in general, to put your kids' need first. And then when you have a kid who has extra challenges, it's like, boy, I'm the last thing to think about. It's all about them, it's all hands on deck. Where have you been on your journey and how has it evolved with like remembering you'll be better able to serve Zane if you take care of yourself? How's
Mm.
that been for you?
It's ever evolving. I'm not gonna lie. Um, you have to be intentional if I'm being honest. I mean, my husband and I, we are pretty bad about getting our date nights in. I mean, we'll be like, oh, it's been a few months. We should probably go on a date night. Thankfully, we have the people in our life that if we reach out, they're always willing to watch the kids. Um, you have to be intentional. I mean, it's bad to say you have to plan it. You have to plan ahead because your days just get away from you. And before you know it, it's like, oh, there goes another week. So yeah, just being intentional, especially being intentional and planning things with your other kids. Um, yeah, you have to be intentional.
And I think for some people, the pitfall is like all or nothing. Like it doesn't have to be a girl's trip away for 3 days. Self care can be in small doses. Where do you find moments of self care for yourself?
Small doses is perfect. So I'll tell my husband, I say, hey, I'm going to take Maddie out. The other day we went to the library. We got some lunch. We got our nails done. We came back home, and it was like the perfect little getaway for us. Just to kind of, spend some time together, do something we both enjoy. The boys at home got to enjoy themselves without us being at home bothering them. So they got some little, quality time as well. So just little things here and there, even if it's like, all right, I'm going to go get me a McAllister sweet tea. I'm going to sit in my car. I'm going to doom scroll and then I'm going to go back home.
Well, there's twice. Those folks at McAllister's are really going to love you. I love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So what advice would you have for moms who just struggle and almost feel guilty
Mm.
spending time on themselves?
You just can't. I mean, you just can't. I think you cannot give to someone with an empty cup. And I know a lot of
Mm,
us moms with special needs kids, we are constantly running on empty cups. And so any chance that you get just to fill it up, and you have to. You have
I
to.
love
It's
that.
imperative because if not, you get frustrated with your kids and that's not fair to them. You're frustrated because you haven't taken the time to do something that brings you joy so that you can give it all to your kids. So you have to take the time, and maybe that's just, once you put them to bed at night, sitting up for an hour and watching your favorite show with your husband.
Right.
But a little, you have to do something besides taking care of your kids. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and what a great way to integrate the topic we talked about before of the village is like finding ways your people around you who care and maybe in some cases don't know what to do, things they can do that'll help you even get a break. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love. So I always like to ask guests this: if we were to bring you in, say a children's hospital, and they're having a speaker series for parents that are on this path, they've got a variety of diagnosis, but their kids are like under 3 years old, but obviously have challenges, and they brought you in to say, hey, Kristen's been down this path. She's got the t-shirt to prove it. What are some of your lessons learned, keys to success, biggest pieces of advice for young parents who are raising kids with all these extra challenges?
I would say celebrate all the small wins. All the small wins. I actually brought my son's thing from the NICU, and these were all his small wins when he was in
Mm,
the hospital for 52 days. He earned all those charms. And so that is maybe, having his first bottle. That
mhm.
is, getting his feeding tube out. Celebrate all the wins and don't worry about what Google says or what the doctors say, what the milestones should be. They're going to meet their milestones, they're going to meet them on their time. And I remember when my son counted to three for the first time by himself. Should he have done it 2 years prior? Probably, if he was typical. But we were so excited, and he was so excited. And so just every little thing, just when they use the potty for the first time, I mean, just every little thing, just celebrate it because you just never know. I mean, like I said, I went from him walking at 3, thinking he's never going to walk, to a year and a half later playing t-ball with typical kids. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah,
So you
amazing.
just never know. Yeah, you just never know.
So celebrate the small wins and don't get hung up on comparing to where they quote
Mhm.
should be.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
And always ask for, like I said, get in the moms groups on Facebook. Ask for advice. There's other moms out there that are going through the same thing. And maybe they can say, what they've tried.
I
There's
love
no
that.
book that's been written that says this is the perfect way to raise a typical child, let alone this is the perfect way to raise a non-typical child.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are listening, again, we would love your ideas. If you know great moms or dads or relatives, we might need some grandparents too, like Kristen. We'd love to have them as future guests on the show. Or folks in health, innovative work in the support of individuals with differences, reach out to me. We'd love to have them as future guests on the show and help me not keep this podcast a secret. Like I said, go to our Facebook page, follow it, like it, share it with others that you think could benefit from seeing ability. My goal with this podcast is always a little bit of education. I know I learned some stuff today. We all need that little dose of motivation, inspiration, and then part of the village. Like I said, people would listen to this podcast because they're kind of nodding their heads all along. We might need a chiropractor or something to sponsor the show because these people who come on the show get it and they understand and they're part of this group that a lot of us never plan to join but are really fortunate that this was brought into our life. So we could use your help not remaining a best kept secret. Kristen, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.